I want to ask you a question today. Have you been waiting on God to receive an answer to a question that you have asked? Maybe it's a question of why. Maybe it's a question of how long. Maybe it has been days, weeks, months, even years that you have asked him that question and you still have not received an answer. And maybe you have, but the answer that you received was not at all the answer that you wanted. What do we do when those times happen, whether we're waiting for an answer or we have received an answer that we really don't like? Or have you ever considered having a Watchtower mentality? I know that statement is kind of foreign. Maybe you haven't heard it before. But I want to encourage you today to have a Watchtower mentality. When I think about this Watchtower mentality, I think about the prophet Habakkuk. You see, Habakkuk was in a terrible situation. Israel was in shambles. It seemed like evil was winning and that bad was triumphing over good. And he asked God a question. He asked God, why are you not doing anything? How long are the people of God going to suffer because of their rebellion? How long, Lord? Why aren't you doing anything? And so God gives him an answer. And the answer that Habakkuk hears doesn't give him any closure. And so he asks God again. I believe each and every one of us have been there when we have received an answer that we weren't really too fond of or happy with. We talk to God again because it seems like the situation is just getting worse and worse and worse. Well, we get to the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2 and verse 1. And after Habakkuk asked again God the question of why and how long and when is he going to come in and do what is right, he says something interesting here that I got this phrase, Watchtower mentality, from. He says in Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse 1 this. He says, I will stand upon my watch and set me upon the tower, and will watch to see what he will say to me, and what I shall answer when I am reproved. Habakkuk says three phrases here that I want to dial in on. And this is what he did when he was waiting on God to answer. And this is how we develop a Watchtower mentality. He says, I will climb. He says, I'm going to climb into the Watchtower. I'm going to take action. I'm not only going to climb, but I'm going to stand. I'm going to wait in anticipation to see what God will have to answer. And that's the third thing. I will not only climb, I will not only stand, but I'm also going to wait. I'm going to wait upon God and see what he's going to answer and how I will be reproved. Now, Habakkuk was a man of faith who learned to wait on God, to hear from him, to anticipate an answer, to accept an answer, and to expect an answer. Whatever answer God gives, he was waiting in anticipation because he knew that God would answer. He was expecting an answer because he trusted in God. And he would accept the answer because he knew that God was always right. The book of Habakkuk is very, very encouraging and very, very important. And the book of Habakkuk actually ends with a prayer, but not just a prayer, a statement of faith, and one of my favorite verses in all the Bible. He says in Habakkuk chapter 3, verse 17 and 18, Though the fig tree shall not blossom, neither shall fruit be in the vines, the labor of the olive shall fail, and the fields shall yield no meat, and the flock shall be cut off from the fold, and there shall be no herd in the stall. Yet I will rejoice in the Lord, I will joy in the God of my salvation. Even if I don't get an answer I'm not going to like, even if things seem to get worse, I'm going to choose to rejoice in the Lord. That was Habakkuk's attitude. But he wouldn't have had that attitude had he not learned to get into the watchtower, to stand, to guard, and wait upon the Lord. And that is something that I need. That's a mentality that I need. That's a mentality that I pray that you would desire to have. And that is a desire that I pray for me, for you, for us. That we will learn to have a watchtower mentality, to climb, to stand, and to wait upon God. And trust me, God will indeed answer your prayer, your request, your questions that you have for him. I encourage you today to have that watchtower mentality.